So, my name is Phyllis Levitt, and I want to tell you why I wrote my latest book, America in Therapy: A New Approach to Hope and Healing for a Nation in Crisis. I can't think of a better time in history that I was born to write a book like this, when we face so many challenges here at home and around the world, both from the way we treat each other, our politics, our institutions, and what's happening in the world in terms of the earth and climate change, that we're really facing so many challenges today about how the human race is actually going to survive. And my contention, having been a psychotherapist for over 30 years, working with hundreds of individuals, couples, families, and children, is that our collective mental health, as well as our individual mental health, of course, is the big missing piece from national conversation about how we can bring ourselves back from the ledge of so much destruction, so much divisiveness, so much violence, hatred, discrimination, and injustice, all the while so many of us are trying so hard to heal the earth, to heal our human relationships, and to heal the institutions of power that have so much control over our daily lives. And so, having been a therapist for this many years, I also worked in a treatment center for sexual and abuse and early childhood trauma. And I was a co-director of a sexual abuse treatment program back in the day in Santa Fe, New Mexico for several years. So I have a lot of experience in what can hurt us and what the after effects are of being hurt by other human beings when we don't get a possibility of escaping that hurt or treatment afterwards for what has happened to us. And I want to bring that conversation to our country. One of the things that most therapists today study is family systems. In other words, we've come to the conclusion quite a while back now, but we've come to the conclusion that we're not islands, that we are very much affected by the people around us, by their values, by their role models for behavior, how men treat women, how women treat men, how parents treat children, how employees and employers get along or don't, and how government operates in terms of the ways that we determine policy and practice that affect so many citizens. And when we look through the lens of family systems, what we see is that all groupings of people operate on family dynamics, not just our families of origin. We all play certain roles, and we learn to play certain roles by the role models of behavior that we have absorbed from the people that we have depended on and grown up with and continue to rely on. What are those role models? And in particular, what we deal with a lot in the world of psychotherapy in family dynamics is, how do people deal with conflict? How do they deal with differences of opinion? How do they deal with different values or different goals or different models for success or gender relationships or money values? What do they do when they don't agree? And very simply, what we've learned in the whole field of psychology, and I can tell you this is my condensation from, over 30 decades of practice, that our most dysfunctional, most harmful behaviors all result from some injury to love and safe belonging. When people are loved, when they're cared for, when they're safe, and they feel that they belong in a safe way, they don't act out on each other. They perpetuate the bonds, actually, of that care and safe belonging for the most part. And it's only when we're not cared for and when we can't find a place of safe belonging, and that could include being overtly rejected, it can include abuse and neglect, it could include gender or racial discrimination. When we don't feel cared for and that we belong in a safe way to other people, we become symptomatic. And the cure then, the bottom line cure, is to find a place of love and safe belonging. And while that may sound really simplistic, in the very complex world we live in today, where there are so many considerations about political party and policy and how we deal with the environment or immigration or economics or gender roles, when there are so many differences of opinion, I think we've forgotten the basic underlying premise of mental health. And I'll say that again, the basic underlying mental health that we are treating in our offices every day are injuries to love and safe belonging, and finding the healing ways to come back to a place of love and safe belonging, even if it just starts within ourselves and our relationship to ourselves. And hopefully then, of course, it spreads out into our larger human relations and communities. But that's the bottom line. And I call it the answers hidden in plain sight. It's not a fancy policy. It's not a new ideology even. It's what we've learned over years and years of helping people heal from the worst injuries that they've sustained, the vast majority of which, 99.9%, are injuries that they've sustained at human hands. So how we break the cycle of violence, of war, of overt discrimination, of terrible economic injustice and legal injustice, how we break that cycle in the surest, most effective way is by addressing our mental health. And we've all been conditioned to believe that the great divides that we're experiencing and the justifications for violence and war stem from partisan divide and ideological differences. And while we have great partisan divide and enormous ideological differences, can we begin to look at those things and how they've become more and more severe in our society today through the lens of psychology and understand that that severity of partisan divide is actually a mental health issue. It's not an ideological issue. And why is this so? It is simply so because mentally healthy and well people do not want to hate each other. They do not feed conflict. They do not propose discrimination or withholding of resources. And they certainly don't propose invading other countries, other communities, or waging war. Mentally healthy people don't want to kill anyone. They don't want to hate anyone. Mentally healthy people actually want to foster getting along, loving, caring, belonging, feeling safe, which is ironically what we all want in our own lives. And the psychological disconnect that I am addressing so powerfully in America in Therapy is this disconnect between what we all want and value for ourselves and our loved ones and what we have allowed to take place on larger social levels in our communities, in our businesses, sometimes in our places of worship, and certainly in government, that we allow and condone ways of treating other people, things in ways that we would never want to be treated ourselves. But let me just put this frame around the picture of my book, America in Therapy, and all of my work based as in 30-some years of being a psychotherapist. And that is the beauty of the contribution of psychology, which we don't find in many other venues, is that it comes from a place of non-judgment. It's not that we're calling these things out because they're bad, or because people are bad, which is what most of us have been programmed to do, but we're calling them out for the purpose of healing these dynamics. And that's the beauty of the best psychology. It takes a lens of looking at ourselves and our human relations in a non-judgmental way, but in a healing way. Just like a doctor would look at your appendix. You're not a bad person if your appendix is infected and about to burst. It just needs to be healed. And I think that's the lens that psychology can bring to us as individuals and to our country and hopefully to the world. That the fact that we're about to explode and are exploding all over the place is something that we want to look at through a healing lens. How do we stop this? How do we heal from this? And how do we heal from the after effects of this and bring love and safe belonging back into the picture of our individual human relations in our own lives, in our communities, in our government, and in our country? And so that's what America in Therapy is really all about. And that's what I want to share with you in my book and in all future discussions that I'd love to have with you about what the contents of this book are in greater detail. Thank you so much. Again, this is Phyllis Levitt. I'm the author of America in Therapy, A New Approach to Hope and Healing for a Nation in Crisis.